Well, there's no way around it. The outcome of this game absolutely sucks, especially to not even get a point out of it. And for a Kraken team that now has that playoff line and the Flames sneaking up behind them, now just 4 points away from Seattle, and the Kraken falling out of that last wildcard spot. But man, what a game it was. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where unfortunately the Seattle Kraken do fall 6-5 in regulation to the Boston Bruins at home, which very well could be the first time they've ever lost to an eventual President's Trophy winner, having beaten Florida both times last season and Boston the one previous meeting this season, with the Bruins very likely to hold on to that title as this season concludes. But while the outcome of this game is the exact same as the previous one against the Sharks, in which they pretty much did everything but technically forfeit the game, this one, they pretty much polar opposite played an incredible game with a couple of little mistakes, which unfortunately, if you make little mistakes against a team that's as good as the Bruins are, they're going to make you pay for them. That having been said, they went toe-to-toe with the Bruins, the best team in the NHL, all night long. It really was a high-flying, fast-paced, great intensity game that felt like a playoff game from start to finish. Honestly, this was the type of game that, even though they end up losing, it may have been one of the best played Kraken games that I've ever seen. So, I mean, it's definitely the best played loss they've ever had, but it's up there with one of the best games they've played, even if the outcome is not what you would like and they don't end up even getting a point out of it in the standings, which does really suck. So as far as taking good things out of this game is concerned, there were a fair few of those. It's definitely good news that they went from playing one of, if not the worst game they've ever played as a franchise, to playing one of the best, and again, certainly the best loss they've ever played. Which is a trend, not the losing back-to-back games, but the massive improvement from one game to another, that the Kraken, now just 4 points inside the playoffs, are going to have to continue throughout the rest of the season, and if they are able to play the way they played in this game against the Bruins throughout the rest of the season, they're going to win the vast majority of those games and won't have any trouble making the postseason. However, if they regress again and go back to playing the way they did against the Sharks, then they might as well pack it up and go home now. Of course, I suppose it is also worth mentioning that while it is getting a little bit nerve-wracking to see the Flames slowly eking their way up towards the Kraken are, while they're 4 points ahead of the Flames, also just 5 points of division-leading Golden Knights. So it's really just that tight in the Pacific Division, with 5 teams all within just a few points of each other. Not that the Flames really have that much chance of winning the division, but the Kraken could easily end up either at the top of the division or outside the playoffs. So again, let's just hope that they can bottle the energy from this game and carry that over into the rest of the season, and it'll turn into more wins than not. Speaking of bottling the energy from this game, it was honestly such an entertaining game, outcome aside, that I think the NHL as a whole would like to bottle what this game was and have that for pretty much every game, especially playoff games. And if you're into the idea of sports being rigged in any way, then I think Gary Bettman, having watched this game and at least probably seen part of Seattle beating Boston in Boston earlier this season, well, he'd probably like to rig that for a matchup in the playoffs, which could only happen in the Stanley Cup final. I'd be perfectly okay with that. This honestly was that entertaining of a game that there's no way anybody as a new fan could have this be their first game experience and not come away a diehard fan of hockey. It was one of the most entertaining sports events I've ever been to, and, well, outside of some thrilling wins in the playoffs for the Seahawks and a couple of no-hitters for the Mariners, it's right up there with the best of them. I mean, that I've personally been to anyway. I know there's plenty of other games, like a Super Bowl, for example, and, I mean, if you're old enough, the Sonics winning a championship. But as far as games that I've actually been to, especially the atmosphere of this one, it felt like a playoff game. As far as the lineup for the Kraken is concerned, there were a couple of changes from the Sharks game. Obviously, one of them being Grubauer back in net, who, even though he lets in 6 goals, this is a game where the stats are going to tell a very different story from what you would have seen had you actually watched the game, where Grubauer honestly played pretty well, and most of at least the 6, if not all of them that get past him, he would have had a hard time to make some spectacular saves to stop those, and to be fair, he did make a couple of spectacular saves to stop what should have been goals outside of them. And then the other two, maybe less obvious changes in the lineup, although the first one still I think would be pretty obvious, was one, Susie back in the defensive end in his spot in place of Magna, who played in the Sharks game. And then on the forward end, in place of Sprong, we got to see for the first time in a Kraken jersey, Jesper Froden, who just recently got called up from Coachella Valley, and had a pretty good game, as we're going to find out. But as the game gets started, just 40 seconds in, it's the usual suspects, at least of late, that get the Kraken on the board first. It's McCann who makes a very nice play, batting a puck out of the air along the boards to create a turnover in the Kraken end, gets it past Pastrnak, which, to be fair, from a Bruins perspective, this was probably the one less than ideal play that Pastrnak made all game long. I don't care what the official stars actually say, Pastrnak was the best player out on the ice for either team. But this one does end up getting past him from the Kraken end, and with the rest of his team, including him, getting caught flat-footed, it turns into a 3-on-1 for the Kraken, with Matty Beniers having the puck in hand. He's got Dunn in the middle and Everly on the far side, and as they skate up, Beniers just takes the shot himself and buries it into the back of the net to put the Kraken on the board first. The kid from Boston scoring against the Bruins to put the Kraken in the lead. It's 1-0 early on. And it is a lead that lasts for the longest that any lead would last in this game. Nearly 11 minutes the Kraken hold on to this 1-0 lead, with a game that was constantly back and forth the entire period, had great flow, and it was one good shift from the Kraken that would hold the puck in the end, get a few good scoring chances, and then the next shift, it would be the Bruins back in the Kraken end, creating some chances of their own, though it does have to be said throughout most of this first period, the Kraken were getting the better of the scoring opportunities, but both teams were certainly getting their chances in the offensive end. Eventually, it is the Bruins who end up tying the game at 1, and it comes on just a really nice passing play started by Pastrnak, who gets shut down by Grubauer on one side, but he gets the puck back, goes around the net, and then spins around, makes a pass down towards the net to, I don't remember who it was, but he spins around as well. Couple spinning passes, and eventually it finds the back of the net off the second pass. Really not much Grubauer or even the Kraken defense. I mean, they could have played a little bit better, obviously, but this is just a very nice play by a very talented team, and the top end of that team as well, to tie the game at 1. The Kraken would end up getting a power play not long after this game-tying goal, but they aren't able to score on it, and eventually we do get to the end of 1 with the score tied at 1. Once again, as we start the second, it's the Kraken who come out of the gates hot in another period, and they score right away again in the second period, getting into the offensive end, and just a minute in, they get a face-off there that Wennberg is able to win clean right back to Dunn. Dunn fires off a shot that he doesn't quite get all of, but it finds its way clean through everybody and I guess does go off the inside of the arm of Swayman in net, but past him and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 2-1 lead, as Dunn even himself, I think, was kind of confused at how that shot that he wasn't quite able to get everything on that he would have liked to found its way into the net, but it does. So again, the Kraken are able to win a faceoff in the offensive end and take advantage of it. Unfortunately, once again, they got kind of stomped as far as faceoffs are concerned, which is, I suppose, to be expected against one of the better faceoff winning teams, with the Kraken being on the other end of that. Also with the goal though, Dunn does add his name to the ever-expanding list and still NHL leading long list of 12 Kraken players now that have 10 or more goals on the season with the Kraken. Of course, Tolvanen having 12 total, but just 10 with the team. The rest of them have 10 or more, having played all of the season with Seattle. The bad news though is that, as would kind of become the theme over the rest of the night for both teams, this is a lead that would not last very long at all. In fact, it only lasts a minute and 6 seconds before Pastrnak kind of just does it all himself. He absolutely walks Adam Larsson, just putting the puck. He doesn't end up putting it between his legs. It looks like it live, but he makes a beautiful move to get around Larsson cleanly and then right up to the net and just backhand shovels it over Grubauer's shoulder into the top of the net to tie the game at 2. And yeah, maybe you'd like to see Grubauer make a save here, but this was just a beautiful play from Pastrnak, and that's really all you can say about it. He makes a perfect move on Larsson, and then a perfect shot to beat Grubauer. The goal is also his NHL second best to Connor McDavid, 42nd of the season. So yeah, if Pastrnak gets a clean look that close into the net, it's probably going to end up in the back of it more often than not. So again, hard to put that one on Grubauer, especially considering that over the next 7 or 8 minutes as we get in towards the middle of the second period, the only reason the Bruins don't take the 3-2 lead earlier than they do is Philip Grubauer. As just a couple minutes after the Bruins take the lead, Marchand, off of a weirdly deflected puck out in front of the net, gets a clean look himself off of the fortunate bounce, but Grubauer is able to dive back and make the glove save, absolutely robbing Marchand of a goal. But while this was a spectacular save from Grubauer, Marchand would not be denied, as eventually, towards the middle of the period, the Bruins are able to take that 3-2 lead. Marchand gets denied on a wraparound chance, this time by the skate of Vince Dunn, who makes a pretty nice play to dive towards the net with his foot and get it to the post as Marchand tries to wrap it around. But the Bruins are able to keep the zone, and eventually a shot that comes right down the middle rebounds off of Grubauer with traffic out in front, and it bounces, of course, once again, luckily for the Bruins, right to Marchand, and he this time is able to put it in to give Boston the 3-2 lead. But happily, as I said, the theme of the night turned out to be quick response goals, as this game continues to go up and down the ice, and less than a minute later, so if you thought 1 minute and 6 seconds of the Bruins responding to tie the game at 2 was quick, the Kraken, 58 seconds later, tie the game back up at 3, this one off of a beautiful backhanded pass, diving deep into the offensive end. It's Geeky with the puck, and he just shovels it behind him. I think no look, or he glances at the last second. Either way, it's a perfect pass out into the slot for Alexiak coming into the play, and he fires off the shot and puts it back of the net, cleanly past Swayman to give the Kraken their third goal of the game, and that quick, less than a minute response to tie the game back up. And on top of that, for Alexiak, with this being his 7th of the season, it is a new career high in single season goals for him, coming off of a disappointing season as far as points production is concerned last year with just the 1 goal. He sets that new career best with 7 this year and counting. Though, of course, last season, while he didn't necessarily score goals, he did set a career high in assists with 16, as well as tying a career high in points, so he was still finding a way to get on the score sheet. But this is the most important part of that score sheet, the actual goal scoring, that he sets that career high mark here, and has a good chance to have a new career high in points production by the end of the season, the way things are going, with these 2 seasons in Seattle being his most productive points-wise. Once again, in the theme of the night, though, the Kraken aren't able to really generate any momentum out of this, and in fact, it's the Bruins who get the next few scoring chances shortly after the Kraken tie the game back up. They aren't able to score on that, and things do even out right up until the last couple minutes of the period, where just under 3 minutes left, the Kraken are going to get a power play and a chance to take the lead again themselves. However, on that power play, Vince Dunn gets a little bit lackadaisical with the puck at the blue line and ends up turning it over, which turns into a 2-on-1 chance back the other way for Marchand and Bergeron, and shorthanded, the pass gets across from Marchand through Dunn in front of the net to Bergeron, who puts it into the back, and that gives the Bruins the 4-3 lead late in the second period on the shorthanded goal. And so there you have it. Once again, the Kraken play a pretty good game 5-on-5, but special teams end up making the difference, even if it isn't even the penalty kill that gives up a goal here. It's actually the Kraken power play that gives up the goal. Or at least, that's how it felt for about 1 minute and 2 seconds, as the Kraken, right off the faceoff at center ice, still on the power play though, get it quickly in the offensive end, get set up, get a couple of chances, don't score right away, but in the final seconds of the power play, Matty Beniers from the bottom of the faceoff circle on the side that he usually stands on, goes down to the side of the net where Yanni Gourde is waiting, and Gourde tries to center the puck up into the middle of the ice in the slot for a shot, but that goes off of McAvoy's stick in front of him and into the net over Swayman, and Gourde with a bit of a fortunate bounce here and what turns out to be an own goal for McAvoy. It ties the game at 4, just over a minute after the Kraken gave up the lead on the same power play. And that's where, even with there just being a few seconds left in the period at this point, maybe not where the chippy physical aspect of this game started, but certainly where it really starts to take off and get a little bit out of control from the official standpoint. As it's right off the face-off, Gourde's still out on the ice, that pretty much everywhere he went, chaos seemed to follow, and very physical, pushing and shoving, cross-checking, even punches to the face and glove washing, which guys will tend to do when they don't want to get called for roughing, but still want to let the opponent know that they're not happy with what's going on. Either way, things get very chippy, and it's not just Gourde. There's other players pushing and shoving away from the play as they try to get a face-off off one of the side ones in the neutral zone. but they just can't get that face-off to happen because Bruins and Kraken players keep starting fights off to the side of the actual face-off dot. And eventually it's Gord and one of the Bruins players, I think it was number 10, whoever that is, get sent to the box both for roughing. And that doesn't lead to much 4-on-4 until eventually at the final horn, as the Kraken try to score, which they aren't able to do in the final seconds, the Bruins get called for another one. This is holding on Schwartz. So the Kraken are going to start with 1 minute and 40 seconds of 4-on-3 power play to start out the third period. Sorry if you had a hard time following all of that, but it was a chaotic last few seconds of the second period that allowed the Kraken to get a pretty good chance to once again take the lead at the start of a third period. But of course, the one of the 3 periods that the Kraken start on not just a power play, but a 4-on-3 power play, which is even better than being a normal 5-on-4. That's the one period that they're not able to score on, as they get caught maybe being a little too careful about trying to find a good, dangerous scoring chance and just waste too much time passing the puck around the outside as they are able to hold the offensive end, but only get a couple of shots off. And eventually that whole power play and subsequent 5-on-4 part of the power play is all killed off by the Bruins. At least on the plus side, though, I guess you could say, it isn't just on the Kraken side of things that after that high-flying, high-scoring second period happens, the scoring dries up as the Bruins themselves have a hard time scoring. Though the Kraken do have the momentum throughout the start of this third period, neither team was really able to create much as far as dangerous scoring opportunities are concerned, largely due to most of the players being focused on the physical, again, somewhat fighty or punchy aspect of this game at this point, which eventually, once again, leads to some more 4-on-4 time, as it's, of all guys, Bjorkstrand who gets caught up in things with Marchand. I mean, it's not that surprising for Marchand. He's Marchand. He has the reputation he has for a reason. He is a bit of a rat out on the ice and likes to push buttons up to the point and even frequently well beyond the point of creating chaos as far as what the officials then have to deal with. As again, he manages to push enough buttons to even piss off Bjorkstrand, who then goes after Marchand. Then Marchand kind of slew-foots him and takes him to the ice in a bit of a dirty play as far as that's concerned. But considering Bjorkstrand's the one that kind of physically went after Marchand in that case. So anyway, out of all that, and actually while they were trying to split up Bjorkstrand and Marchand, Bjorkstrand very unhappy about Marchand slew-footing him to the ice as all that was happening. On the side, Gord and another one of the Bruins have each other by the collar, and it looked like they wanted to fight, but another one of the officials was like, nope, guys, none of that. So they split them up. Anyway, Bjorkstrand and Marchand end up to the box. We go to 4-on-4 for the third time this game because actually I skipped over in the middle of this period as this comes towards the end of it. In the middle of the period, the Kraken got another power play that was ended early, not by a goal, but by Dunn cross-checking a Bruins player behind the Kraken net on another shorthanded chance. So the Kraken power play having a bit of a mixed bag as far as the night is concerned. So that all gets killed off. Nobody scores 4-on-4 there. Then the Bruins get a power play, which they get some chances, but they don't score. And then we get back to the end of the period here where we're 4-on-4 with Marchand and Bjorkstrand in the box. And it's a 4-on-4 chance that this time the Kraken are able to score on. And it comes late in the 4-on-4 and with just about 5 or actually just over 4 minutes left in the game, as Borgen up by the corner of the offensive end just kind of throws the puck towards the net. It's going to be a shot on goal, but not a very dangerous one. An easy save for Swayman to make. But right in front of Swayman and with the defender on him is Schwartz, who's able to get his stick on the ice, and it tips up over Swayman and into the top of the net, right into the top corner. A perfect tip by Schwartz that gives the Kraken the late 5-4 lead. And it looks like the Kraken might just be able to come away with this one. But again, the theme of the night was quick response goals. And the quickest of those responses comes still during this 4-on-4. As the Bruins, while the Schwartz goal is getting announced and the crowd is still buzzing from that, get it into the offensive end, and all 4 Kraken players get caught puck watching in the corner, and Carlo sneaks behind to the far side of the net where the pass eventually gets to him, and he tips it past Grubauer. It's a nice bank pass with Carlo on the far side as no one could get over to him or to cover the pass in time, and just like that, the game is back tied at 5. Which is certainly disappointing, but not terribly surprising. This really did feel like a game that was destined for overtime. but it doesn't even end up getting there. Is the most disappointing and heartbreaking part of this night for Kraken fans anyway. Comes a couple minutes later when the Bruins back into the offensive end again, this time at 5-on-5. It's honestly not that dissimilar from the goal that the Kraken had to take the lead from Schwartz at 5-4. It's a shot from up by the blue line up in the corner that goes down towards the net, and it's DeBrusk with his stick on the ice, and it's just a perfect, I mean, with a tip like this, obviously there's a lot of skill involved, but there's also some luck involved. It goes perfectly top corner, bar down and in, and it's a 6-5 lead with a minute and a half left for the Bruins. But the Kraken finally are the ones that can't have that last quick response. And although they do get some chances with the empty net in the last minute and a half, they aren't able to find the back of the net again. The Bruins come away with the victory and a heartbreaking loss for a game that honestly the Kraken played absolutely fantastically in. Yes, there are a couple defensive breakdowns here and there that lead to some of those Bruins goals. Larson gets walked a bit by Pasternak once, but both teams were playing this game at such a pace and just so much flow in this game that goals were bound to happen. And honestly, neither goaltender I thought played that poorly either. Between the two, I think Grubauer probably had the better night, all things considered, but this was just a game that both teams were playing so well offensively and in transition. It was just a joy to watch. Yes, even with that heartbreaking and pretty disappointing way things end, especially with the Kraken giving up the game tying and then game winning for the Bruins goals, both in the last 4 minutes, as they had that lead in the final minutes of the game. But even there, I mean, the game tying one that makes it 5-5, where play was 4-4, but the score then becomes 5-5, was probably the biggest defensive breakdown of the night for the Kraken, at least from a team perspective. As far as individually, the shorthanded goal that Dunn turns over the blue line would probably take the cake there. But this was just such a well-played game at both ends and so much fun to watch. As far as, I mean, if you were a neutral observer of this game, this had to be one of the best games of the season. It just doesn't go the way of the team most of us here are cheering for. But the Bruins were really just that good and created those opportunities themselves with some beautiful passing plays in the offensive end, a number of which didn't lead to goals thanks in large part to Grubauer, but also some very nice blocks. It wasn't just Grubauer that came up with some good saves. I mean, we already mentioned the one with Dunn getting his skate to the post there to prevent the wraparound chance from Marchand, even though he ends up scoring later on that shift. So, I mean, in the end, they stayed toe-to-toe with a Bruins team that was playing playoff hockey. The Kraken continue to play this way, like we said in the beginning. This is the type of hockey that they need to play for the rest of the season and then into the playoffs to, well, maybe even make a deep playoff run and potentially see this team again this year. Which, yes, I know is getting way too far ahead of ourselves and would also mean one of my least favorite teams in the Bruins would make the Stanley Cup final and have a chance to win it. But based on how the two meetings of these two teams went in the regular season this year, I would kill to watch 7 more of these games, and the only way that happens is in the Stanley Cup final. Which, if it came to that and they played 7 games like this, I don't know how my heart would hold up, and it might take at least 7, if not more years off of my life, but it would be fun in the moment. As far as Kraken 3 stars in this game, we can easily find those. The first one is easily Matty Beniers. He gets a goal and an assist, so 2 points in this game. The third now game in the last 4 where he's gotten 2 points, with the obvious exception being that Sharks game where nobody got a point for the Kraken. But Beniers now 6 points in the last 4 games as he is heating up after that stretch of no points, as we knew he probably would. And then the second star, I'm going to give it to Jesper Froden. He ends up with an assist. I think it's the second one of his career, having only played a few games with Boston last season. The Kraken picking up in the offseason, and he's played with Coachella Valley the whole year. But he comes up here for this one game, getting to play against his old team. And he gets a secondary assist on that Alexiak goal, as he was the one that passed it to Geekie before Geekie makes that beautiful backhand pass to Alexiak. So, even outside of that, though, he really had a great game, had a couple of very nice shots on goal, and a couple of setups that could have easily led to primary assists, just Swayman was also making some saves outside of the 5 that he let in. And then the third star is a little bit trickier. There's a lot of guys who had really good games offensively and maybe not so much defensively, or had mostly good games, made one big mistake. I mean, Gord would be one guy that had a great game on the offensive end, but in the defensive end had his issues. And while he was definitely a spark plug for the team and just mixed up in all sorts of chaos as far as fights or pushing and shoving anyway between plays, I just don't know that he had a complete enough game to really get a star. Dunn had a great game outside of basically handing the Bruins that shorthanded goal, so I don't really know if he's going to get a third star. In the end, I think Alexiak is the guy for me that would be the next best for that third star. He ends up with his 7th goal, which, again, like we said, is a new season or single season career high for him. And even outside of that, played really well in the defensive end. Really the only blunder he has in the defensive end, well, one, I think he was one of the 4 players, if I remember right, that was out on the ice for the 5-5 tying goal at the end of the game when everyone got caught puck clutching. But he also, it was kind of just a bad bounce. It wasn't really his fault, but he was the one that the puck bounced off of out to Marchand when Grubauer made that spectacular glove save back in the middle of the second period when things were still tied at 2. Schwartz, Wemberg, and even Eberle could certainly be mentioned. So I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comment section as far as what guys you would give stars. But for me, it's going to be Beniers, so I think everyone can agree on. Jesper Froden, who again I think is a pretty clear second there. Maybe even first, but no, Beniers had 2 points. And then Alexiak will be the third. And before we close things out, there was something else that happened between these 2 games with the team that I wanted to mention, and honestly was planning to do it towards the beginning, but with the way this game went, we just had to get right into it. And that would be that, and I might do more of this style of thing in like shorts going forward. I've been playing with that idea. I haven't done a short yet ever, so we have to figure that out in the first place. But between the last game and this one, the Kraken did announce that starting next season, they will have the sponsor badge, or a sponsorship badge on their chest, which I will say I'm not a huge fan just purely from a visual standpoint of those sponsorship badges. But that having been said, because it probably was inevitable that it was going to happen at some point, the fact that the Kraken have chosen to go with a partnership with the Muckleshoot tribe and have that badge just be the badge and insignia of a local tribe, I think is really cool. Now, I've seen people poo-pooing this online and stuff like that about it being just a shameless promotion for a casino, but it's very important to point out that the Muckleshoot tribe, and really any tribe, are not just the casinos, even if that's all that really gets any of the attention, because that's how they have to make money. Ultimately, this is the casino. I mean, it doesn't say casino anywhere on it. It isn't the logo of the casino. It's the logo of the Muckleshoot tribe. And yeah, I mean, sure, the casino is part of their thing and that's how they have to make money. But part of the reason that they have to make money with the casino is because of how marginalized these communities have been. And for the Kraken to go out of their way, not just to be as directly partnered with native tribes in the area really from this get-go, but now to use this sponsorship place where I'm sure they could have made more money going with a different sponsor like Starbucks or something like that, to go with a tribe and have their tribe logo, and again, not have casino anywhere on it. It is a different logo than the casino logo, which I've seen some people say that it's just the casino, even if it doesn't say the word. Totally different logo, other than Mount Rainier is part of both, but other than that, I mean, I don't know. The badge doesn't look that bad. It does have kind of Kraken-y colors, and it's got Mount Rainier on it. So as far as that's concerned, it could be a lot worse. I mean, look at the Wild one, for example. They've got beautiful jerseys, and then they've got this absolute eyesore of whatever the heck that is on theirs. So, yeah, I mean, I know there's people that aren't going to be a fan of it. And like I said, purely from a visual standpoint, it's not my favorite. But if they're going to have a sponsor, I think this is about the best that they could have. I know there's also some non-ideal kind of things as far as relationship with the Duwamish, who would like to be recognized for legal reasons as their own tribe, and the Muckleshoot getting this kind of attention might make that harder for the Duwamish, and there's all sorts of stuff with that personally I don't understand as well as I probably could. So if you have a more intimate understanding of that, or you're part of one of these communities, please let us know down in the comment section, kind of the more the intricacies of all that stuff. I'd love to have that education. But anyway, the gist of it is that this could have been like a Starbucks sellout or something like that, especially that it's not Starbucks and that it's a local tribe and not specifically their casino, I think is really cool. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in here at the end. Like I said, that'll probably be more something I would go over in a short later on going forward, but we'll find out. But all that having been said, if you have made it to this point, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. Until next time, against the Toronto Maple Leafs, another one of the NHL's best teams that the Kraken will have to show up for, but have already beat once this season. Stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.